This story was inspired by a Drake face tattoo that went viral over a decade ago. Many people have seen the photograph but don't know what allegedly went down afterward. Here's a dramatized animation of the occurrence. One day I met this customer, a young lady in her teen years wearing a gothic outfit. She had black lips, dark shaded eyeshadows, and a frizzy hairstyle. However, she seemed a bit worn out, her eyes straining red, and I could only assume that it was due to sleep deprivation. In addition, her attire didn't seem to fit her at all. She was paunchy, yet she tried to dress herself up like the slim and gorgeous Willow Smith. The woman's eyes grew in anticipation as she said,
"I want the name Drake on my forehead. Nothing more, nothing less."
Enraptured by the mere thought of having her favorite musician permanently inked on her face, she browsed through the pictures on her phone and showed me a particular pattern that she designed herself. My goodness, this lady came prepared. Although I admired her bold attitude and immense passion for Drake, I've had cases of customers regretting their choices in the past and was afraid that perhaps she was currently a bit too euphoric to realize that this could be a bad idea. So I tried my very best to be polite and considerate. Drumming my fingers on the table next to me, I said, "Ma'am, that sounds like an excellent choice. Drake is one of the best artists there is today, but
What do you mean one of the best? He is the best. Don't you know he's the sixth god?"
She interrupted, her eyes obsessing over Drake's photos on her phone. "Right, of course, but you see, I've had a couple of clients a few years back who wanted some of the most creative designs tattooed on their faces, but eventually regretted having them later on, so..."
So what?
Her mood instantly leaned towards consternation.
Are you saying that I'm going to regret this later? Do you think you know better than me? You're not my dad, okay? So stop acting like one. Sheesh!
She put her phone back into her pocket and with her arms akimbo, she said,
"Look here, you're not being paid to comment on your client's choices. You're being paid to give us what we want!"
Then, unable to control these intense emotions, she took some of the used needles from the sink and threw them furiously on the floor, like a little girl having tantrums. Well, here we go again. I would occasionally run into these types of customers, so I had gotten used to it already. However, I didn't want to be the person to say, "I told you so" in a couple of weeks. Nonetheless, my motto at work was, "The customer is always right," no matter how bizarre the request was. In the end, I succumbed to her adamant request and eventually gave her what she wanted. Using her preferred font style and font size, I began tattooing Drake's name on her forehead. I've tattooed many clients' faces before, but this tattoo definitely took the cake. Typically, face tattoos were always a sensitive spot to tattoo for any client, but this girl took it like a champ. As a matter of fact, during the entire session, she stared at me with a huge, disturbing grin on her face, as if I was fulfilling some kind of demented Drake fantasy of hers. When the job was done, she didn't have the reaction I initially expected to see. Instead, she appeared downtrodden as she looked at her own reflection in the mirror. I instantly took a photo of her and she was taken aback. Then, disappointed, she said,
"What the hell was that for?"
"I always take pictures of my customers, ma'am. It's part of my portfolio as a reference to help me improve my art. I suppose there isn't a law against that, is there?" I retorted, infuriated by her negative response after complying with her request.
"You call this art? You sicken me!"
She hollered in agony. Then she handed me the payment and barged out the door. The following day, I instantly regretted caving in, because when I turned on the TV to watch MTV, a man was interviewing Drake. They talked about a woman who had the artist's name permanently inked on her forehead, and they even displayed her photo on the screen. I was caught off guard. She must have posted it on social media to obviously complain about it and get sympathy from the Edisons while grabbing Drake's attention. But it wasn't her picture that aggravated me, though. Instead, it was the words that came out of Drake's mouth. Pulling out a smirk and a condescending laugh, Drake told the interviewer, "I feel so much love for the lady. I mean, that's pure love right there. I wish I could meet her to understand why. I feel her 100%, and I just think she's incredible. It's love, it's crazy, it's surreal. But as for the tattoo artist, man, go to hell, dude. I mean, he's messed up. He should definitely lose his job." After watching that, I focused all my energy on succeeding clients, hoping they wouldn't be as delirious and irrational as my last customer. Then, one day while I was attending to a client, a tall, muscular man entered the shop. He wore a plain black t-shirt, denim pants, and Nike rubber shoes. He came toward me and said, "Hey you, do you know this woman?" He lifted the same picture I saw on MTV, the look of disdain on a lady who wasn't even pretty. I nodded and replied, "Yeah, I've seen her. Why?" Then, surprisingly, he crumpled the picture in front of me and asked, "Do you know the tattoo artist who did this to her?" I gulped, my anxiety slowly growing. However, I didn't want anyone else to be accountable for what I did, and so I raised my hand gingerly and replied, "It's me. I'm that guy." The moment I said that I was the guy he was looking for, he lunged his fist at me without hesitation, and with the first hit, I was instantly thrown to the floor. Naturally, this scared off my client, who ran out of the shop, leaving me alone with this belligerent stranger. With blood flowing from my head, I struggled to get back on my feet. Then, as I stood up, the man thrust his fist towards me again, but this time hitting me simultaneously like this was a UFC match. Soon, I realized that this wasn't just a UFC match. It was a fight to the death. The way he attacked me didn't feel like he was there to leave a warning. Instead, he was there to actually kill me. I was bewildered and afraid. As I crawled towards the sink to get my hands on some needles that could help me defend myself, the man beat me to it first, grabbed a couple of used needles, stabbing me in the legs. Distracted by the pain, I clutched my legs as the man kicked me with brute force until I fell unconscious. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed with my pal Jack standing next to me. When I asked him who the stranger was, he told me that he suspected the goon of being connected to Drake. However, it was only an assumption. There was no way I could have him investigated to discover the truth because, well, he was Drake, and compared to him, I was a nobody.
Yo, have you seen this picture?
I have.
What are your thoughts on it?
I want to meet her and understand what happened. That's cool though. Like I feel you 100%. That to me is like absolutely incredible. I don't know if you can see it, but this girl tattooed Drake on her forehead. The guy who tatted it is a though. I will tell you that. I don't with that guy. You to that tat artist, by the way, because for real. And you should lose your job. And you should never do tattoos again. I don't with you. But real though, I really like. I want to talk to this girl and understand it all. You know. I mean, it's crazy. It's surreal. I don't even want to look at it anymore because it's real. You know.
This story was inspired by a clash at the legendary OVO Fest, which was a concert hosted by Drake every summer. Many artists, whether they are on tour or not, meet their fair share of flings, something Drake was especially known for. We figured we'd whip up a Drake nightmare fuel, cause why not? Here's what it looked like. For my own safety, I must remain anonymous. But even at the risk of being discovered, I need others to hear what I'm about to say. I used to have a celebrity crush on Drake, sort of. I say sort of because in reality it went far beyond the extent of most celebrity crushes. This all took place during the summer, a couple years back. I went to one of Drake's OVO concerts alone. I know way too many people here right now that I didn't know last year. Who the f*** are y'all? I don't usually go to festivals and concerts like this by myself, but this was a special occasion. I guess you could say I was planning on getting close to Drake the entire night, but it was all romantic lust. I had a ticket to the pit, and it took withstanding a lot of stares and random hands on my body, but I succeeded in getting into the very front, right below the stage. There were some extremely forgettable opening acts before Drake got on stage, but once he appeared, things got electric. The concert itself was perfect as far as I was concerned. I'm sure everyone who was there had a great time, but none so intensely as I. Of course, I never took my eyes off him, and I made sure that no matter who was there with me leaning over the barriers and showing their cleavage, even if Beyoncé herself had showed up, I would be the one who stood out among the crowd. I'd spent hours on my outfit, Not to mention the days, months, and years I'd spent sculpting and perfecting my body on top of my genetic lottery. I was probably the hottest person in the arena, and all my work paid off in getting Drake's attention. The whole time he was performing, I could see him glancing over in my direction, giving me bedroom eyes in front of all those people, and even kneeling before my section at one point so we could get a better look at each other. Honestly, if the night had ended there, if the concert wrapped up and we all went home, it still would have been a legendary evening. I would have gone home with heightened Drake fever, and I would have continued to obsess over his music and image. But that's not the way things went. After the music stopped, I lingered at the barrier for a few minutes, catching my breath from all the action before attempting to make my way home. Then, something seemingly miraculous happened. One of Drake's personal bodyguards walked down the space between the crowd barrier and the stage, scanning all the faces that were there until he found mine. He then approached me and offered me the chance of a lifetime.
Good evening, ma'am. You seem to have caught the star's eye. You've been offered access backstage to speak with him if you choose to accept.
He didn't even have to say his name for me to know who he was talking about.
Yes, I accept. Please take me to him.
Follow me.
The bodyguard took my hand and helped me over the barrier, then led me through a maze of wires and scaffolding until we reached Drake's personal backstage room. Meeting his gaze was like a dream come true.
Yeah, she's the one I saw.
The sound of his voice gave me chills. Just then, the sea of bodyguards between me and him parted, and I nearly ran into his embrace. I was immediately wrapped in his arms as we fell onto a nearby couch and began to cuddle, unfazed by all the people surrounding us.
This is so surreal. I can't believe it's really you.
Want to know the biggest advantage to me performing so close to home?
What's that, Drake?
I get to take you home to my crib, where we can drop this entourage and really be alone together.
That sounds divine, Zaddy. I mean, Drake. Take me there.
Just hold on. We're going home.
I'm sure anyone can guess what happened after that. I won't get into the personal details. All you need to know is that the effect of his stardom did wear off, unfortunately. We slept together for a few hours, but I knew I had to show up back home at some point before sunrise, just in case my husband suspected any of my thoughtful acts. Drake was dead asleep, but I made so much noise getting dressed and collecting my things in the dark that I woke him up before I was able to slip out.
Where you going, boo?
I'm sorry. I gotta go.
Well, I've heard that before. Could I at least add you to my hotline bling? You really got me in my feelings.
I'm really sorry, but I just can't do that. I'm married.
Something about what I said really set him off. He started crawling up out of the sheets, growling like a dog.
I better find your lovin'!
I slipped through the doorway and slammed the door behind me. I then ran down the hallway to find my way out, but of course it wasn't going to be that easy. Drake exploded out of the room behind me and immediately began to sprint down the hallway. The look I got on his face as I glanced over my shoulder was horrifying. He looked just as deranged as an incel threatening to go on a rampage. His eyes welling up with childish tears and his teeth bared like a rabid dog. And behind it all, supposedly, I never ran that fast in my life, and I'll probably never run that fast again, unless my husband finds out about this. The layout of his mansion was like a maze of its own. There were so many twists and turns and corners that I tried to lose him with, but he knew every shortcut. Several times I thought I'd lost him, just to have him appear right in front of me, forcing me to stop dead in my tracks and sprint in the other direction.
Started from the bottom, now here!
Leave me the hell alone, or I'm calling the cops.
I knew I was about to run out of steam, but I couldn't let him get to me, so I ducked into a random room and locked the door behind me, then threw just about everything I could find in front of the door. Not even a minute later, I could hear Drake obliterating the door with a sledgehammer, plummeting through it till it was nothing but smithereens. With nowhere else to go, I was forced to lift open the window and jump down onto some soft, expensive-feeling grass. And from there, the rest of the escape was easy enough. All I had to do was slide underneath the front gate and then call a very expensive Uber to get home. I still think about that interaction to this day, and get reminded of it every time I hear him on the radio, or see him on the TV. Kiki, do you love me? Are you riding?
The next story was inspired by a bizarre case regarding a Drake stalker. Not much of the public knows about the case, but there's been ongoing lawsuits and restraining orders filed between the pair. I don't want to disclose too much specific details as I'll let the animation speak for itself. Here's a dramatized version of the alleged occurrence. I would usually partake in the annual OVO Fest with other talented artists like Migos, Travis Scott, and The Weeknd. After the concert, a lady wearing checkered pants and a casual shirt with the name Drake approached me. She looked ordinary and harmless, so I didn't have any negative opinions about her. She simply came to me to ask for my autograph, which I gave her generously. However, the way her eyes twitched and her smile formed was quite unsettling. It sent chills down my spine. Later on, she held my hand, startling my co-rappers and me. Then she said,
I finally get to meet you, but this isn't enough. I need to spend more time with you, Drake.
I gently let go of her hand, putting mine in the deep pockets of my favorite leather pants, saying in an awkward tone, thanks, I guess. Nice shirt, by the way. And your name is?
Oh, yeah, you can call me Kitty. Actually, I live in New York City, but I'm ready to start from scratch here in Canada, especially now that we can be together.
She replied flirtatiously, her eyes filled with desperation and passion. It was honestly starting to creep me out, so I kindly asked her to sit on a chair and wait for me. Then the next thing I did was call security to escort her out of the premises, but things only got worse after that. She became hysterical and went berserk. She began turning tables and chairs, ranting.
I want to be with you, Drake. Why are you taking me away? I'm his hotline bling.
When she was finally out of the building, my pals approached me and expressed their concern about the girl. They told me to contact the cops to execute a restraining order. However, disconcerting she may be, she hadn't caused my family nor me any actual harm. In fact, at some point, I even thought that she may have some kind of mental disorder, so I felt sympathy for the poor girl. In the end, I simply let it slide, and I quickly forgot about her. But days later, I began receiving email messages from a woman who said she knew everything about me and would do anything to get close to me. As proof, she indicated my favorite food, my type of lifestyle, where I went to high school, and other predictable personal stuff. But later on, when her messages started talking about what I did in the past couple of days with my family and close friends, which no one was supposed to know about, I was taken aback. To protect the identity of the individual involved, we'll call her Maria, but she was a total stranger to me, and so I left her with a warning. In my email message to her, I said, "Stop sending me messages using any email service or social media. Do you understand? Just don't contact me anymore. I don't appreciate you peering into my private matters." Then, not even a minute later, I received another email coming from the same girl. This time, she sent me photos of herself posing erotically in different positions. But what made it even worse was that she held pictures of me in her selfie photos. It was disgusting. So, despite her being an avid fan or just a really strange groupie, the most logical thing was to block her email. And then, hours later, I received numerous emails from another account with the same message saying,
Drake, I love you! How could you do this to me? Don't you dare block this email too. But if you do, I know where to find you. If that's not enough, I can also do horrible things to your little boy. You can't run away!
I turned a blind eye and blocked this email too, so eventually she stopped sending me those pesky emails. As a precaution, I instructed my security team to double their efforts to keep my home and son safe from external forces that could wreak havoc. However, one day I got a call from security telling me that someone had broken into my house in Los Angeles. Good thing I wasn't there at the time. But as I watched the surveillance footage sent to me, I shook my head in disgust and utter disappointment. In the video, I saw a woman creeping into the house through the kitchen window. She walked towards the fridge, took a couple of sodas and water bottles, brought them to my room, locked herself in, and laid her filthy body on my bed. She vexingly caressed my blanket as she drooled over my pillows, licking them afterward. Later on, she opened the cans of sodas and water bottles, consuming their content while watching television. Then, when she still wasn't satisfied, she slid the closet door open, took one of my hoodies and wore it as she danced and laughed deliriously. But what I saw next gave me nightmares. She took a screwdriver from her pocket, stabbed my pillows on the bed, and started screaming.
Drake! I want you, Drake! You got me in my feelings!
She said as tears dripped down her psychotic face. Eventually, the guards found her, forcing her to leave my property. In the video, she adamantly claimed,
Drake said I can stay here longer. You have no right to push me away.
Seeing she had completely lost her mind, the guards called the cops and she was taken away as she struggled to break free from their grasp, saying,
You'll regret this, Drake! You hear me?
Afterward, I requested a restraining order against her. Then, later on, I received a call from my lawyer, telling me that someone had just sued me for $4 billion. Soon, I discovered that she was charging me for using her name and damaging her reputation in product affirmations, rap music, and social media posts. But that wasn't all. My lawyer told me that she had spoken to the woman who had pressed charges against me. In their conversation, he said, Ma'am, do you realize that if we take this to court, the liabilities weigh heavily on your side? Then she replied,
Is that a threat, Mr. Steen? Just because Drake is a huge star doesn't mean that he can get away with what he did. He's gonna pay.
Miss, you do not have undeniable empirical evidence of him doing any of these things you claimed. Therefore, I kindly advise you to step back and walk away.
You liar! I'm suing Drake whether you like it or not!
She replied, hollering hysterically on the phone, nearly breaking my lawyer's eardrums. Afterward, she hung up on him. After speaking to my lawyer and reading posts on social media, I soon discovered that the woman was the same individual who sent me those disturbing email messages and photos. Then it hit me. Suddenly, I remembered meeting an ardent fan in one of my concerts who called herself Kitty. I soon realized that she was the same woman who broke into my home, but after confirming that she was mentally incapacitated, I decided that no criminal charges should be filed against her. However, I became more vigilant after that, hoping there wouldn't be another crazy fan stalking me.
Want to know the biggest advantage to me performing so close to home?
What's that, Drake?
I get to take you home to my crib, where we can drop this entourage and really be alone together.
That sounds divine, Zaddy. I mean, Drake. Take me there.
Just hold on, we're going home.